Today, so excited about another edition of Growth Monday, and I've got a great guest today. We're going to be talking about how you and I can ask better questions that get great results, and I've got the right person to talk to us about that. He's built his career on asking great questions. Okay, so welcome to the show, Robert Berry.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. So, and those who are just now signing in, even if you're watching us replay or live, which right now we're actually live, but even if you're watching a replay, let us know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country, what area of the world, and where are you? How would questions help you in your particular area, whether it's in business, career, network, whatever the case is. I would love to see different scenarios in the chat because we're going to be looking at this real time and see if we can make this customized to you. Those of you who are taking your time to watch us, we want to make sure the time you spend on this show is highly valuable because we know one thing you cannot get back, and that's time. Once you invest it, you can't get
Absolutely.
it back. You can earn money back, but you can't earn time back. So we want to make sure it's definitely worth your time, and I think we've got the right guest to talk about it. And Robert, or as I call him, Rob, many others, I say he's built his career around asking questions because he was in a position for quite a while there as a chief auditor where he had to ask some tough questions to get some tough answers. And so we got Muhammad's already chiming in. We got Joanne's here as well. Joanne says that guy looks familiar, Rob Berry. Yes, he does. And thank you for joining us, Muhammad Abdullah Shakur. He's with us as well. All right, so I want to ask you this, Rob. One thing that kind of sets you apart from other auditors has to do with the title of our show today. Tell us a little bit about how that served you well as a chief auditor.
There are a couple of things I believe. I believe that the quality of your life is directly contingent upon the quality of questions that you ask throughout your life, whether personal or professional. And so, as an auditor, your entire job is really to ask questions to find out what the truth is in an organization. And I don't mean your truth or my truth, because I don't believe in any of that. I think that there is one objective truth. When you can be objective and really ask people some quality questions, you get some better answers, and then you can use those answers to make better decisions. But, I've spent my time asking questions my entire career. That's what it was built on.
Makes sense. Absolutely. I I'm glad you mentioned that about objective truth because some people you hear that terminology used as if you can't actually find out what the real truth is. And so before we leave that point, I want to just delve into that because just delve into a little bit more about what you mean because I'm with you on that. I'm actually 100% agreeing with that thought.
Yeah. So, you hear people, especially nowadays, I'm just speaking my truth. Well, your truth may not be complete. So I really don't care about your truth. I don't even care about my truth because a lot of people will say, well, what about your truth? I don't have a truth. I have a version of the truth. But if you can bring me some additional information that might make me think differently or may provide me with some additional information, I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't listen to you. That doesn't make any sense. There is one objective truth. Because what a lot of people do is we don't necessarily listen for the truth. What we do is we do what I like to say, instead of asking questions and listening to learn, we ask questions and listen with the intent to confirm something that we already know, to confirm something that we already believe in. And that doesn't make any sense because you can't learn anything new if you're doing that. So yeah, there is no such thing as my truth and your truth. There's my version of the truth. My version may be incomplete. There may be a set of facts that are missing. That's why I cringe anytime I hear somebody say that. I'm just speaking my truth.
Yeah,
Well, what's the real truth?
absolutely. In fact, I see there's quite a few in the audience that agree with you, including me. That is definitely something I can subscribe to.
Now, I just made some people mad with that, though. I mean,
That's true, but I don't. You know what? It is what it is. Okay, if I know that 1 + 1 equals 2, I can't say, well, my truth is 1. Oh, well, my truth is 3. It's
right,
it's 2.
right, right.
So I
Well,
think part of your maybe is that your accounting background that's kind of speaking? Is that what do you think that was the base, or do you think it was how you came up, how you were raised?
I think some of it is how I was raised, and some of it was just when you operate in whatever the real truth is, you're just better off. Because you think about this, and I tell people all the time. First thing I tell people is, first, I'm too stupid to really lie to you, because I can't make up stories and create these robust scenarios. Then the second thing is, lying to people takes too much time, effort, and energy, time that I don't have. And you just started the show by saying time is the one thing that you can't get back, right? So don't waste my time. So yeah, I think it's just kind of how I was raised, and I don't have time to beat around the bush. Because think about this: when people tell partial truths, a partial truth is still a whole lie.
Hmm. You know what else? If something is 90% true, it's 100% misleading.
Yeah, yeah.
because because it's that 10% that'll get you.
Look, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to say it anyway. It reminds me of Bill Clinton when he was being impeached, and he said that depends on what the definition of is. Is like what? What?
Okay, this is good. I love this. Okay, so now we're on the same page. We're trying to seek whatever it is at the time. We're trying to seek the objective truth. We're trying to get to that. And if you're trying to close a deal, if you're trying to grow in your career, grow in your network, if you're trying to have a tough conversation, whatever that is, you want to try and get to the objective truth, because if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to make good decisions. I love that what you said earlier is that, if we're just speaking my version, whatever that is, that may not be the full picture. So we got to get the other person's picture. All right. So tell me this: how do you handle it when it's a very uncomfortable situation? Because I know as an auditor, you're trying to get to something that's going to be very uncomfortable, because if they answer the question, first of all, they may be the one that's guilty, or they may know the person who's guilty of it, but there's some ramifications if they release that information. So what are some things that you do to kind of help to reduce some of the barriers there, to kind of make some of those come down so that you are able to get to the truth?
Well, here's the thing: if you are interviewing someone, um, your goal is to obviously get to the truth. Even when you talk to police, FBI, law enforcement, they'll tell you they're not trying to get a confession out of people. They're just trying to get to the truth. Now, the longer someone talks, the more, the greater your chances are of getting the truth out of them. Like I remember one time I had my staff and we were interviewing this woman, and we knew what she had done because all the documentation showed us that she had done something that was very bad. As we were sitting there interviewing her, my staff, they were looking at me really strange because the woman was lying. She was lying. I knew she was lying. They knew she was lying. She knew she was lying. But I kept asking her more and more questions. So later on, my staff asked me afterwards, why did you just sit there and let her lie? Why didn't you call her on it? Why didn't you call her a liar? But what they failed to realize is while we were sitting there talking to the woman, she disclosed 2 or 3 other things that she had done. If I had called her a lie on the one thing we knew she was lying about, we would have never gotten to the other stuff. So you just let people talk. Eventually, some parts of the truth will come out. You don't sit there, and that's what we do nowadays. We want to call people on everything, and sometimes they may not even know parts of the story that you know. Again, that's what I say. You want to try and figure out what it is that they know so that you can put pieces of the puzzle together. But everybody wants to call everyone out. Why?
That's a good point. It's like I was raised with the saying about how you want to sometimes hold your cards close to your chest. Don't let them know everything you know, and just kind of wait and be patient. I like that. So you want to be patient. So you ask the question, and you try not to check everything they're saying. You're taking in this information, and give me an idea of how you're framing your questions. What are some tips on that? How you frame them?
Yeah, it really depends on the situation. But so let's just say if we suspect someone has stolen some money from an organization. First thing I would do is I would show them what it is that I'm seeing. Hey, look, this bank account has a gazillion dollars missing. My next question is going to be, can you tell me how that could have happened? See,
Ooh,
I'm
I
not
like
asking you
that.
for answers. See, here's where people mess up. You're not asking people questions to get answers. You're asking people questions to get stories. You want to know their
Oh,
side of the story. You're not.
yeah.
So what most people will do is they'll say, "There's $1 million missing from this bank account. You did it. Tell me why'd you do it? How'd you do it?" No, there's a gazillion dollars missing. How could this have happened?
I love that question.
I mean,
I love that question. That is awesome. Okay. Um, so just really quick, I had Muhammad came in. He remembered you. He says Robert Berry was on a podcast earlier when Rollis was out of town.
oh, that was so much fun. I had a good time.
Yeah, you did. You guys did a great job. Okay, and then Benjamin, he says the truth is that there's only one truth. Anything viewed through through a prism will naturally have a different tint and not be purely true. And to Ross's point, if something said isn't purely true, it isn't true at all. A version of the truth, my truth, your truth, must be false. Okay.
Right.
Joanne says, Robert. He said she's basically talking about you. She said that time is the ultimate truth teller. And then Esther, hey Esther, she says, I think you said it accurately. Their truth and your knowledge may not be the same. It doesn't automatically mean they lied either. It's what they know. Oh, that's an
Yeah.
interesting thought. Yeah, have you come across situations where they're thinking something is true, and I guess to them they are telling the truth, but it's according to what they know. Does that happen very often?
All the time, because in some instances you might find out that you're actually wrong because you don't have enough
Mm,
information. So, and that's why I say you're searching for the objective truth. You will never get to the truth if you're not objective. So, can you imagine? Throughout my career, I've done some pretty significant investigations where some people have ended up going to jail or prison or whatever. Could you imagine if I went in with a bias? Now I'm being unfair to that person as well because their life could be taken away from them. Their freedom, shall I say, not their life, but their freedom. So that doesn't make any sense. That
right.
that's bad on my part.
I like that. That's a good point. Yeah, you want to be objective with that. Okay, so let's take what you're talking about, where we're talking about a situation where someone is possibly either guilty of something or they have information we need to get to find out who is guilty of something. Let's change the scenario a little bit. Let's say we're looking at a situation where we're trying to persuade or influence someone to whatever. Let's say we're sharing at the time. Maybe it's something like we're trying to get that next promotion, or we're trying to sell that next service that we're working on. Any tips that has helped you in that audit space that can be carried over to other parts of life? And if so, can you give me one of those examples?
Yeah, if you're looking to get a raise at work and to get some visibility, you're looking to get promoted, ask, what are our objectives? I mean, because who doesn't want to achieve their objectives? A lot of times we don't even know the goals and objectives in the department that we work in. And I think that's sad. I think it's sad on both ends, a department that hasn't communicated their objectives, but then an employee who hasn't asked. Because if you know what their objectives are and you're actively trying to achieve them, then who are they going to look at? So if the goal is to hit $1 million in sales this year and you go out and bust your butt and get, a bunch of sales, then who are they going to give the promotion to? You are the person who didn't hit that number. So everybody operates based on some sort of objective, but very few people can articulate what their objective is in life, and very few people ask, what is your objective? What are we trying to achieve here? What do you want us to do here?
That's a powerful question. That is a very powerful question. Okay, now here's one thing that I have found in working with in kind of sales situations, and I think this applies to even a job situation too. So I'm having a conversation with a prospective client or even a current client, and I'm asking them, what is the goal? A lot of times they don't know. They
Yeah.
don't know what the goal is. So
Yep.
what do you do in that situation?
You know what? A lot of times people don't know what their goal is, but I bet you there is one thing that they do know. they know what their pain points are. Because as
Yeah.
people, the one thing we like to do is complain. So,
Yeah.
so, people know what their pain points are, and they'll talk about them all day long. And the pain point is usually someone else from their perspective. Right? It's never them. It's always somebody else.
That's a good one. I like that one too. So, okay. So I want to make sure we help our audience come up with some ideas on how to frame that. So here we are in a situation. You've asked them what their objective is. Like, let's say, like you use a number of $1 million. Where they say, well, we want to make sure we do well, do the best we can. Well, what is that number? And they don't want to give. Sometimes they don't want to give you a number because they say, like, if they tell you $1 million, and they really want, and if you can get $1.5 million, they want you to get the $1.5 million. So they're afraid to tell you the million. I've come across that before too, where they're afraid to give you a number because they don't want to cheat themselves out of getting something more. Have you come across that before?
Yeah. Honestly, sometimes you have to be okay with accepting the answer that people give you, or sometimes you have to be okay with just walking away, depending on what the situation is.
Yeah,
Walking away is still an answer to a problem.
that that is definitely true. That is definitely true. But when you're trying to build your business, whenever the case is, there is a tendency to take on things that you probably wouldn't take on in other situations where you feel like you got some more choices to make. So
Oh yeah,
I can
yeah,
understand. And then for those of the folks who are in a job and they're looking to get a promotion, they're looking to say, so what's my goals? What I need to hit? And then the employers, they don't really know. Sometimes they don't really know what the number is. They're just like,
yeah.
you know,
What's interesting with that is, again, what are people's pain points? If you can solve someone's pain point, then they'll love you forever. Okay, maybe not forever, but but
at least for a little while.
right, until the next pain point hits. But people like people who solve problems, even if they aren't real problems. Sometimes, even if it's a poorly conceived problem that they think of in their head. So if you can find out what someone's problem is, so for example, you can ask people, what is the one thing that you spend a significant amount of time on? Because
That's
I mean,
another
you'll
good one.
spend a
These we
significant
get some
amount.
good ones here now. I like this. We got to get a list so you're going, Joanne.
I mean,
Can
but
get
think
this
about
book
it.
for
If you
sure.
spend a significant amount of time on something, it's either because it's generating a lot of revenue for you, or you want it to generate a lot of revenue for you, or it's that squeaky wheel that gets the oil sometimes. It's that problem that you can't solve. But whatever you spend a significant amount of your time on, that's what as I get tongue tied, that is what is important to you.
I like that one. Yeah. So Joanne, we got to mark that one down there. That's definitely a clip because what are you spending a significant amount of time on? Is that how you said it? I want to make sure I got that right.
What are you spending a significant amount of time on?
That's a good one because sometimes when you ask you what their pain point is, I don't know. Do you find that works well? If they say, does that resonate with them and they answer you right away, or do you get some hesitation? Because it seemed like the time one was easier. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't necessarily ask what is your pain point. My objective is to try and find out what the pain point is, because yeah, most people aren't going to respond to that. Now, some people will, but you start asking questions again, like, what do you spend most of your time on? What are some things that worry you? What are some tasks that you wish you could delegate but you can't? That's always a good one, because if they wish they could delegate a task, why haven't you delegated it?
Yes, I like that one. Okay, now being as I have the question guy on, I got to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
You okay with that?
Sure, sure.
And those in the comments, those who watch, I don't care if you're watching live or replay. I want you to answer. I want you to answer this question too. Okay. All right. Would you rather topple a display of 10,000 cans in your local supermarket and make the local paper in a feature highlighting your humiliation, or have it reported in a tiny blurb on the back page of a local newspaper that you got injured? That you
Uh-oh.
got injured. I'll just say in the bathroom.
That I got injured in the bathroom.
Yeah, fell off the toilet.
You know what? really wouldn't be bothered by either one of those. I mean, if it's a small blurb on the back saying I got injured falling off the toilet, so what? It happened. It's just real. If I knocked over a 10,000 can display, so what? It happened. It's just real. But okay, if you're gonna make me pick, then why not pick the smaller one, right? They're both kind of embarrassing, so why not pick the one that's the small print in the back of the newspaper?
Yeah, I mean, well, the other one, you're featured in the local newspaper. Granted, it's not for a great thing, but you are getting featured in the local newspaper. So it depends on how much you really want attention, I guess.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, it does depend on how much I really want attention. Because what is it nowadays? It doesn't matter. Any news is kind of sort of news that you can capitalize off of for 15 minutes
Right.
or 15 years.
Benjamin says, "Who reads the paper?" That's my that's my pick.
I'm with Benjamin on that one. But wait a minute. Aren't we still talking about the girl who put Gorilla Glue in her head? Right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, tell me about that. I don't think I know the details on that. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, she was trying to find some glue to put weave in her head, and she ended up using Gorilla Glue, got it stuck in her head, ended up getting flown out to Los Angeles to get a plastic surgeon to remove it. But then they started a GoFundMe account for her, and she got money just for being, I'm going to be nice. She got money for doing something that she should have known better anyway. Right. So, maybe I'll change my answer. Maybe the front of the newspaper is good. Maybe I can start a GoFundMe account and get some money for doing something bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Okay, now Esther, she came back in and says it's hard to know. It's hard to throw darts in the dark, blindfolded, and hope you hit the target. More often than not, it is exactly like that. They don't know the objectives, and if they do, they don't know the path to achieve it. Yeah, that's very true in a lot of cases. Okay, this is a little bit easier for you. Go ahead.
So I'll tell you a little secret. Well, maybe not a secret. So I'm a certified public accountant, but I hate numbers. In all honesty, I became a CPA because, and it's a true story now, I became a CPA because where people spend their money tells you what's important to them. So I figured if I understood the flow of money in a business, I could understand what's important to that business. What you spend your money on is what's important. Think about your household. What you spend money on is what's important to you. So I figured if I could understand money and how it flowed through an organization, then I could actually help organizations to solve critical problems. So to her point, she's right. Half the time they don't know, but you can always follow. That tells you something.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love the part where you said about what you spend a significant amount of time on, because even if they don't even, sometimes they may not know what their true pain point is. And if they don't know what it is, they know pretty much what they've been spending a lot of their time on in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
One thing I've gotten to as an answer is if you can just get it where I don't get complaint emails from this particular person or persons, that will actually do it for me.
Yep. And you know what it ends up being, though? It ends up being that there's some sort of personality problem between the two of them. Somebody is doing something wrong, either one side or the other, and then one party won't listen to the other, or both parties. And what I like to call those in organizations, I call them egos and silos. People are operating in silos and they have huge egos and they won't talk to one another. And so I've done plenty of engagements where I've had to come in and just be the mediator between two parties who couldn't work stuff out. But yeah, that's always a fun answer to get. Very fun answer to get.
Okay, so you're the question guy. So again, I got more questions for you. We're going to keep talking about questions, guys. If you're just now chiming in, we're talking about how you can ask better questions to get better results, and we've going to cover some pretty cool stuff so far. So if you're just now joining, you need to go back and watch the beginning. Okay, so my next question for you: would you rather have low ambitions and succeed, or high ambitions but fail?
Oh, geez. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna say. I think I would rather have high ambitions and fail, because I'll be darned, if you keep failing, at some point something has got to succeed. If you have low ambitions and succeed, that thing is probably going to be short-lived, because nothing lasts forever. I mean, if you think about it, look at companies like Blockbuster Video and some of these other companies where people were able to create multi-billion-dollar companies that are no longer around. Well, if they had low ambition, how would they start over? So I'd rather have high ambition and then fail, because you keep failing long enough, something is bound to hit for you.
I like that. I think that has a lot to do with questions too, because you may try a question, it doesn't quite work out. Maybe it's not resonating. So you may have to try again. And if that doesn't resonate, and then I guess over time you kind of collect. In fact, you've actually done that with a book, I think, right? Is you've collected some questions or some thought processes on how you can be successful at that. Tell me about what inspired you to do that book, first of all, and then tell me a little bit about what's in it, because I actually should have bought it already. I don't know why I hadn't bought that thing. We need to put a link in the comments on how to buy that book.
Yeah, so it took me a while to really figure out. So when you tell people that you're an auditor, the first thing they do is turn their nose up and run away, because nobody wants to be around you. But I started figuring out that it's a beautiful job, because you get to see all aspects of an organization. It is, and fun fact, it is one of a few jobs where you get exposure to the C-suite in an organization so early in your career. I mean, I was engaging with the C-suite in my mid-20s, and I just thought that was normal. I didn't realize that that was abnormal. But um, I started figuring out that my entire job was surrounded the questions that I could ask people and the relationships that I established with people. And then I remember I read a book called How to Click by Dr. Rick Kirshner. And he said that there are a few things you know about people before they even open their mouths. One thing is people love to talk. Okay. Second thing was people are interested in people who listen to them. And I forgot the third thing, but those things struck me as, okay, so if people love to talk, then they must be drawn to people who ask them questions. And so I started figuring out this is a good thing, asking questions. So then I thought about my life as a whole. So I grew up poor, like really poor. And I say to people, I grew up so poor, we played cops and robbers with real cops. Of course, that's what some people don't get, right? But where I grew up and how I grew up, the average life expectancy for a black man, you were expected to die between the ages of 18 and 24 due to gun violence or drugs or something.
Yeah.
But my friends and I, we would always ask questions. How can we get out of this neighborhood? How can we get out of this condition and position that we're in? And a vast majority of us made it out because we would try to figure things out. I've got friends who own their own businesses. They're electricians, plumbers, auto mechanics. Some of them are lawyers. Some are judges. But it was all because we would sit around outside and we would just say, man, how can we make some money? No, that's not it. How can we educate ourselves? Wait a minute. No, that's not it either. How can we provide something of value to people that will make them pay us? And we all figured out what our theme was. So
Yes.
from as early on as a kid, it was about how to ask questions so that you could figure out how to provide value to other people. What are their pain points? That was what we tried to figure out. So anyway, yeah, my whole life has been about just how can you ask the right questions. And so, I ended up going to college, getting a degree in accounting, ended up leaving the city and state that I grew up in. And literally, I've seen a vast majority of the world. I traveled almost all 50 states in the US. I've been everywhere just because I tried to figure out how is it that I can move myself from where I am to a different spot.
I love that.
So anyway,
Okay.
in the
Go, I'm sorry. I thought you
no, go
finished.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to ask you this question. What have you done that people said you couldn't do? What's the
Oh
first thing that comes to your
man,
mind?
a lot of stuff, man. They told me I couldn't write a book. I've written 5. So um, I actually. So it was funny. I grew up in Alabama, in a small to medium sized town. And back then, when I was growing up, it was a different climate. It was a different environment. I remember I had it was either a 6th or 7th grade teacher tell me I couldn't write, I couldn't speak, and I didn't need to ever try and go to college.
Wow.
Well, heck,
Wow.
last time I checked, I went to college, got an undergraduate degree, got a master's degree, became a certified public accountant, got a bunch of other certifications. And well, just last week, I did a keynote speech in Washington, D.C. before, I think the total audience was like 500 people is what they told me. So I don't know.
That deserves this. Yeah, that was for you, my man.
Oh man, I appreciate that. You have a fabulous audience.
So,
I,
okay, let me ask you this then. So I want to go back to this question thing again here. So we've all been in situations where you're asking these questions and and the person is starting to, they're kind of, I don't want to say bristling up, but they're being kind of short with the answers. You can tell that they're holding back. What are some tools that you've used? And I'm not even necessarily always talking about guilty people. I'm just talking about just in general.
yeah.
What are some tools we can use to help open up the conversation a little bit more so we can get more information if they're not as chatty as we would like them to be?
Yeah, and I think it depends on the situation, because if you're in a work situation and you're trying to get information from some people, I'm extremely direct at work. I mean, my thing to you would be, look, I can sense some apprehension. What's going on? I'm extremely direct. Heck, I'm direct in my personal life too. If something is wrong, let's talk about it. And I'm not afraid to call it out. Look, I sense apprehension. You don't want to answer this question. Why is that? Is there something I can do to make you more comfortable? Is there something I can do to get you to answer the question? That may not always be the best approach, but it works sometimes until it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, then you try something else. But I just hate wasting my time, and I hate wasting other people's time.
That's a good point. Just come right out and say it. I like that. Muhammad says, "Who was she? Need to see you now." So he, that teacher who
Oh,
told you
teacher.
that.
Yeah. I'm fairly certain she's no longer with us. I'm kind of up there in age, and so
Okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, you still look young, man. You still look young. Okay, I have another question for you. Would you rather get everywhere by crawling or have to stand on your hands when you're stationary?
oh geez. Let's think about this now. If I had to stand on my hands while stationary, I wouldn't be able to do it because I would just fall over. Um, so by process of elimination, I just have to fall everywhere. I mean, you know what? Wait, let me think about this though. Let me take that back, because I could stand on my hands up against the wall and I could always just move and not stop. So what about sleeping though? How would I sleep?
We'll give you a break to sleep. We'll give you a break to
Okay,
sleep.
so yeah, I would much rather stand on my hands when stationary then, because I'd never be stationary. You'd always see me pacing back and forth. I'd never stop walking until it was time to sleep.
There you go. You would just keep moving, huh?
Yeah, even in the shower, I just pace back and forth.
Even your meetings, you'd be pacing around your meetings, or maybe if you're
Yeah,
at the office, hey, look, let's take a walk together. We'll talk about it while we're
there you go. All those standing meetings that are all the rage now. We do standing and walking meetings. Even when I'm cooking, I'll just go back and forth from the fridge to the stove. Yeah, yeah.
You know what? That's good. I like that. I'm with you on that. Guys in the comments, what do you guys think? What would you do? Would you do crawling or would you stand on your hands when stationary? It's a tough.
Funny though. Let me tell you what's funny though. You notice how when you presented the scenario, I went straight to asking you a question. I said, "Well, what about sleeping?" And once you
Which is
gave me
good.
the answer, then I changed my answer to what was more fitting. I can't help it.
Yeah, but there's quite a few people who do that though. There's quite a few people. It's interesting when I ask these questions, they want to get more, like it's not enough. They want rules. Like there's a set of people who want rules. Then there's another
Yep.
set of people who will already make up their own scenario and they'll answer it right away and they'll give you the reason why they said that way because here's my scenario. It's interesting how different people tackle it.
Yep.
But you're the question guy, so you ask the question. Makes sense. Okay.
And honestly, sometimes I do both.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this. Whenever you are talking with someone, trying to, if it's selling a service, or if it's, even if it's, let's do that. Let's do selling a service. So let's pretend we're selling some type of service, and or a solution, rather, a solution. And this could be in an employment situation, because there may be something that we found that we feel can help our company, and we want to get our boss to approve that expense. Or if you have a business, you might be selling some type of service. And so, give me an idea of what the framework should be like for questions in those types of situations.
Yeah, so in a work scenario, if you have a boss that you're trying to get to buy into some solution that you think will work, it still goes back to, what problem are you trying to solve? You have to know what problem you're trying to solve. Then you have to look at the solution that you're proposing, and you need to figure out, okay, does the solution that I'm proposing actually solve this problem? So if the answer is yes, then you need to figure out, okay, how does it solve this problem? That's what you need to write down, because that's what you're going to present your boss with. Hey, look, boss, we have a problem. I think I have a solution to the problem. Here's some of the benefits that will be derived from us solving this problem. And then the other thing, too, though, realistically, if you're talking about a boss at work, though, those initial solutions have to be from an emotional standpoint. You can't come logical with them, because they'll hear the logic, but they won't really think about it, you know? So, it'll be something like, listen, if we implement this system, we won't have to work all those extra late night hours. Now you pique their interest, and behind the scenes, you've already calculated the total dollar amount that you're going to save, and so then you hit the rational, logical stuff in the end. I mean, research tells us that no matter what, people still lean towards their emotion. No matter how many facts you give them, all of us, we typically lean towards our emotion a majority of the time. So that's the other part about it, is you got to know what people's emotional pain points are.
Love that. And you can only get there by asking questions, which I appreciate. There was a question I saw Shanae had on her profile the other day, and she asked him, how often do you use intuition when you're trying to make decisions, right? And I think it was like 88 or 87% that said yes. I think it's 100%.
Right. and then, and then we go and try and justify the decision that we made.
Yeah. I think those 12%, they weren't being totally honest, because I think everybody uses their intuition to some level, some greater than others, right? To different degrees. But I mean,
Yep.
come on now. You're using your intuition at some point in that decision making process. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, that's because we think we already know the answer. All of us do it. We think we are. I mean, even when I ask people questions, I have to take a step back, because that first thing is to respond emotionally, or to respond based on our belief. I just believe this is so.
Yeah. Okay, now when you're asking questions, and you talked about this earlier, that they're not being truthful with you. Okay. So you're in this track, and this even happens with selling solutions too, because you'll ask a customer something, and for whatever reason they may not want to give you 100% accurate information, because there's some particular reason why they're holding that back, just for whatever reason. So if you're in a situation where you're asking these questions, and the person is not being forthcoming with truthful information, and I'm not going to say they're let's just not say they're lying, okay? They're just kind of holding back, or kind of flavoring things a certain way, for whatever hidden reason that they have. When you sense that, does it change your approach any? And if it does, what do you do to adjust your approach in those situations when you know that you're not getting 100% accurate information?
So it depends on what my overall goal is, and bear with me, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. If I don't mind the person getting mad and I really don't care, I might keep pressing the issue by asking, ancillary questions, questions surrounding the real thing that I'm trying to get at. So, if I'm investigating something, and I suspect that someone has taken something, and I have this evidence, I'll keep presenting different forms of evidence. Hey, look, you said this, but this is showing me something different. Well, you said that. Now this is showing me something different. And if I don't care about them getting angry or not, I'll keep pushing the issue. Now, if I do care about them being angry, say if it's a potential client or someone where I really want to preserve the relationship, if they're asking me a question, or if I'm asking them a question and I really need the answers, I'll tell them, here's what I'm surmising based on the set of facts that are before me right now. So I'll be sure to paint the scenario based on the facts that I've gotten from them. Because you know what happens, people give you partial truths, and you make conclusions based on those partial truths. Then they come back and they want to say, well, you said this. Well, yeah, I did say this, but it was based on this certain set of facts. Because oftentimes you don't really want to make people upset, because sometimes they aren't lying. They just have a certain frame that they're stuck in. And if they're stuck in that frame, it's okay to answer them based on the frame that they're in right now. That's okay. A lot of people want to push and push and push and prod. To what end? I mean, you don't necessarily want to ruin relationships with folks. So it's okay to answer a question based on a given frame set.
Makes sense. Okay, now Benjamin has a question for you. He says, I got a question a little bit off topic of the questions. He says, Robert, hearing your story of growing up poor and having success later in life reminds me of my own story. How much impact do you think that the struggle has had in your success? Do you think you would have been as motivated to succeed if you started off in life in a better place? What are your thoughts on that?
I would not have been. No. I think I don't want to glorify struggling, but I think there's something to be said for having to struggle, because I think what happens is you end up appreciating the things that you have in life a whole lot more. So you take someone that doesn't have anything and then they work hard to get it. I think there is a greater appreciation, not just for things. So I'm not limiting that to things, but you have a greater appreciation for people. Like, for example, Rollis, I met you in March of this year, and the things that you said to me, I've taken in a lot. I've probably never said, thank you as much as I need to, but I really appreciate just meeting you because of the things that I've learned from you just by watching you, or the things that you to me. There's something about when you struggle for information, when you struggle to get an education, there's something about it that you want to hold on to it tighter, and you really appreciate it because you've had to work for it. You appreciate people who taking the time to just give you their valuable advice, their valuable input. The things that I remember it was me, you, and Kizzy and Jessica and a few other people that met in this mastermind. And for goodness sake, Kizzy has taken the time to just pour into me for free. She's told me how to go out and get government contracts, and because of her,
same for me,
be able to get government contracts. It's just, I think it's different when you have to work for it. And I don't think that has anything to do with poor or rich, though, because you could have parents that are wealthy, but they've made you work for the things that you have.
Yeah, I think it was actually a little earlier than that. It just lets me know I didn't make as much of an impression on you, because I think it was January.
It was in January, was it? I thought it was like March.
Because when we did that course, that was like right towards the end of January. We started that course.
Wasn't that a different course though?
Yeah, that was the one where it was just a handful of, like you said, Kizzy and Jessica and Catherine and
and Catherine.
And I'm forgetting some other names. What's that one?
Mark and John.
Yeah, Mark was in there. John. Yeah, exactly. That was, I think I started like late January. Then we did the 30-day thing, the videos and all
that's
that.
right.
That was like in March or whatever, something like that.
That was
May
March,
or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly. Yeah, it probably was March. There we go. See, we're getting to the objective truth here in a minute. We're going to get to the objective truth.
There you go.
As to when we actually met, which I think was
now later on you're gonna send me your receipt. See, I paid for it in December, so it had to be January.
Exactly. Okay. All right. That was very powerful. I do appreciate it. Okay, now I have to have another question for you. All right. So who would you like to do? Let's imagine for a second you've got a great singing voice. I never heard you sing, but let's say you had a great singing voice. Who would you like to sing a duet with? And what would you sing?
Ooh, who would I like to sing a duet with?
Yeah, and those are the comments. I want you to answer the same thing. Let's assume you have a great voice, and you have a wonderful, powerful voice. Who would you do a duet with, and what would you sing?
Oh boy, so that's a really, really tough one. No, it's not. No, it's not. I would do a duet with the younger Mariah Carey, and the song that we would sing would be Endless Love.
Ah, that's a good song. Yeah. She would sing that well with you too. That's a
Yeah.
good one. I like
So
that one.
Mariah, if listening, call.
Well, you said the younger. Is she young enough for you?
Well, you know what? And I didn't mean really her age. It's just that her voice, I don't know if you've heard her recently, but her voice sometimes cracks and stuff now. And
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't know if she's not taking good care of it. Kind of the same thing that happened with Whitney. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Isn't that something? I'm so glad Mariah's still alive, because a lot of these other ones, I mean, Whitney, Luther. I mean, it's just like you go down the list. It's
uh,
Prince. I mean, MJ. I mean, all these people, and they're relatively
yeah.
young. They're like in their 50s, because like you and I are in our 50s, right? So it's like, that was young. Anyway, sorry, getting off. So that's a good one. I like that one. So Muhammad says, Robert Berry, how to spot a good question when you don't know the other person.
How to spot a good question?
Yeah. So how to spot, or I guess to choose a good question when you don't know the other, when you never know the other person, is what he says. I'm
Oh, you know
assuming
what?
it's somebody you
So
don't know.
I'll tell you. Wait, do we have time for a short story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll tell you guys a story. So when I was in my early 20s, I worked for one of the top accounting firms in the world. I worked for Deloitte. And when you work at these huge accounting firms, you always have to go out and smooth with some of your clients. And I was shy when I was younger. I know it's hard to believe, but I was real shy when I was younger. And we had to go to this one party where we had to smooth with these executives from Merrill Lynch and a bunch of other companies that were our clients. And I was terrified. So I had this plan. My plan was to walk into the party, kind of wave and let everybody see me, do the rounds, stay there for about 10 minutes, and then get out. So that was my plan. So I got caught in this group of people who were all talking about things that I had no knowledge of, because I grew up in the hood. So I didn't know anything about, skiing in Aspen and doing all this other stuff. And so I remember somebody asked me a question and I just froze because I didn't know how to answer it. Because again, I was shy and I didn't have that much exposure to the world. So then I regrouped and I said, okay, new game plan. My game plan was to get everybody talking about any and everything about themselves. And so I started asking people questions, question after question after question about themselves. I found out about their families, about where they last vacation, where they went to school. So the next day, my boss calls me into the office and he's just like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I'm thinking, oh God, I'm about to get fired. But what he said to me was, hey, you were the life of the party last night. And I'm thinking, really? Me, the life of the party? But what I discovered was, as I started doing research later on in life, is because I ask people about themselves, and because inherently we like to hear ourselves talk and we like to talk about ourselves, we're drawn to people that ask us about ourselves. So it almost doesn't matter what you ask them, as long as you ask them something about themselves and let them talk. And then do what I call ask them add-on questions. Like a lot of times what we'll do is we'll just say, well, how was your day? But that's kind of a bad question. What I like to ask people is, hey, what was the best part about your day? Or what was something exciting that happened to you today? So when you start asking that, again, you don't ask for answers, you ask people for stories. And when they start telling you stories, so after that, I really figured out, man, I don't have to talk because I don't think there's anything that exciting about me. But if I can get other people to talk about themselves, then all of a sudden they'll like me. Didn't know what I was doing back then because, I was in my early 20s, but because I was so afraid, I just kept doing that, and it ended up working out to my benefit. Sorry,
Absolutely.
Mom,
Absolutely.
tried to make it
That is so good. And it really helps to exemplify the power of questions, because they may not have remembered anything about you, but they remembered how they felt because you asked them all those great questions that gave them an opportunity to express themselves.
Yeah. Well, the other thing it did too, though, was it armed me with a lot of information about places that I wanted to go. And I
Yeah.
ended up going to a lot of those places. But, just, yeah.
Speaking of that, where's the next big trip? I'm talking about personal, like a just a vacation, just to get away and enjoy yourself. Once we have full freedom, or maybe you already have enough freedom yourself, but anywhere you want to go in the world, where would you go?
Oh, I want to go to the Maldives
Why there?
because I've seen such beautiful pictures of the actual hotel rooms that are out in the water, and I just want to have that experience.
Yes, me too. I want a similar experience. However, where I want it is in Jamaica. That's where my wife is from.
Oh, nice.
There's some nice things where the little huts are out there in the water.
Hmm.
They're a little pricey, but I would like to try that one day you basically are living literally on the water, and you got to go on a plank to go out there.
Yep, that's it. That's
Love it.
exactly what I want to do.
So
Well,
Muhammad,
and
so did
it's
we
weird.
answer your question? Because he said because he followed up with his add-on question was how to approach them. I think you really that story I think really helped. That was huge. Anything you wanted to add on that? But because he said how to approach them, or you think you pretty well
Yeah, I mean
covered it?
that's it.
Yeah,
Just don't be afraid and really take a genuine interest in them. Ask them about themselves. I
yeah,
learned so much from people just by asking them about what they do and how they do it. It's amazing the way people will just pour into you and tell you stuff if you just ask.
yeah. I agree. Now, here's one thing I will say for those who because there's different cultures do things different ways, and I can only speak for the one that I've grown up in. Here in the United States, in a business context, one question I get sometimes in my inbox, and I'm not 100% sure I know how to answer it, is someone who doesn't know me, we've never had an interaction before, sends me a message that just says, "Hi, how are you?" So it's good that they're asking me a question. That's a good thing. But I'm just like, this person doesn't know me. They've never contacted me before, but they're saying, "Hi, how are you?" What's your take on that, Rob? I want to, since you're the question guy, what do you think about that? I'll tell you what I'm thinking. But I want to hear what you're thinking first.
I'm going to be really honest with you on this because the way I handle it is in a few different ways. Well, first, let me just say, I think that's a horrible question to ask someone that you don't know, especially reaching out to them on LinkedIn because you're saying that because you want something from them. What is it that you want? Everybody's time is valuable, and that shows me that either A, you don't know what you want, or B, you are somehow apprehensive and afraid to communicate to me. Either way, if I don't know you, it depends on the kind of mood that I'm in and what I see when I look at your profile. I may say, I'm fine. Is there something I can help you with? Because, like, just a blanket, hey, how are you is weird.
Yeah,
But sometimes I actually just ignore it because I can't pull out of you what it is that you want. I shouldn't have to do that. Like, we're not friends. I don't know you. So it's really not my responsibility to pull that out of you.
yeah. I'm kind of with you on that one. I struggle with this because I want to be kind. I want to be kind to the other
Yeah.
person. I don't want to be. I don't want to be that experience for the day that was horrible for them. But then the same token, I also don't want to reward bad behavior either. It's like, um, you're I'm automatically thinking, what is the point? Like there's got to be a reason. They're not necessarily they're not actually interested in how I'm doing because they don't know me. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out already why is it that they're asking me this question? Like, what's the point? So I'm kind of like you, is like, okay, I've done that before. I'm doing great. How can I help you? Is what sometimes
Yeah.
I may answer. But I also realize it's a lot of cases when I do get those questions is people who are not from the US. And
Yeah.
that's when I say, you know what, let me pull back a little bit. Their culture may be different. So that's when I usually answer like what you just said is I would like to know I don't say I like to know. I'd say I'm doing fine. What is what what can I help you with? So I'm just going to give a word of wisdom for those who are asking questions. You're from another country and you're messaging someone in the United States. If you don't know them, it's probably better to go ahead and say what you want versus wasting a whole message exchange on how they're doing. Would you agree with that?
Well, and then that gets into a whole nother issue. Well, so a couple things. That's why I said I like to check their profile, because what is it, like 60 or 70% of LinkedIn users are outside of the
Yeah.
US?
Yeah.
So it's a high number. But also it could be another extreme, because some people, I had somebody email me and say, I'm trying to start a company and would like for you to invest. Wait, what?
That's another good one. Yes, yes, where it's just too forward. It's something you would only ask if you
Okay.
get a chance to know someone for a little bit first. That's another good
So,
point.
well, but here's the thing. Okay, here's a big tip. If you are sincerely reaching out to someone, you must have seen something that made you reach out. Like, for example, somebody's watching us now and they might say, hey, Rollis, I saw you interviewing Robert Berry. I just wanted to ask you a question. Or they may say, hey, Robert, I saw you on Rollis's show and I just wanted to ask you a question. Otherwise, it may not be sincere. It may be one of those run and gun type things where they're just throwing out sales messages to everyone. But yeah, I mean, it takes a balance. It takes us understanding other cultures and it takes them understanding our culture.
Yes, I like that one. Okay, Benjamin, he says, to Robert's point, that someone asking, how are you, really want something from you, aren't all questions an attempt to get something from someone else? And if so, how do we ask for things we really want, like a job or a raise, in a way that gets results? I just lost my guest. Oh no. Oh goodness. Let's see what happened here. And if he doesn't come back, I'm going to answer the question for you. Let's see here. Well, we are at the 3:00 portion of our show. Okay. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. I don't know what happened. Some kind of technical difficulty here. I don't know exactly what it is. Let me try one other thing, and we'll see if we can get him back on to answer that question, and we'll give it another shot. Here we go. Okay, I don't know if you can hear us, Robert, but your camera's off. I'm glad it came towards the end. We got such a great conversation today. It was a fantastic conversation. And it looks like I'm not able to get him back, but that's okay. Let me look back at Benjamin said he couldn't handle the question. He couldn't handle the question. No, I'm sure he could. I'm sure he could handle the question fine. Let me read the question one more time. Aren't all questions? If so, how do we ask for things we really want? Okay. So I think he was getting to that point. Basically, what he's saying is that before you ask the question, show how it's relevant to the person you're asking to. So I like what he was saying. Like, let's say was someone that was asking that was watching this show, and then they sent me a message after the show saying, "Hey, Rollis, I saw your show about asking great questions. It really stirred a lot of thought with me. It really resonated with me. I have a question of you. What's this or what's that or can you help me with this particular thing or something that's related to that? That would be a great lead in. Or let's say someone looked at my profile and they see that I'm a recruiter and say, hey, look, I noticed you do recruitment. It looks like you do recruitment for nurses and nurse practitioners. I actually, sell a product that helps nurse practitioners do X. What would your advice be in helping me to promote my product? Something like that. Just whenever you relate it to something you've seen about the person or learned about the person, and then you use that to ask the question with someone you don't know, that would be my advice. And I think it's in line with what Robert was saying, because that's basically, I think, the point he was getting to in his his observation. So hopefully that helps you. And let me see if there's any more questions before I end it today. Yes, Muhammad, we're still live. Appreciate you guys watching. Muhammad, Benjamin, Joanne, all of that. Really appreciate it. Robert, if you can hear us, if you want to just click back on that stream, we'll let you right back in. In fact, I see you're in right now. Let me disconnect, and then I'm going to try and bring you back one more time, and we'll see if we can bring you in. Yeah, looks like we're not bringing it back in. But listen, we appreciate everybody watching. It was a great show anyway. We literally got almost an hour anyway out of it, and it was fantastic. So thank you, Robert, for being on. It was a great show. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know our audience did too. In fact, those of you in the audience, those who are watching the replay, let us know what resonated with you out of what you saw today. What is it? What points did you think you're going to be able to take away from this and use in terms of asking great questions or anything else? Anything else you kind of learned from our discussion? And any comments you want to make, please do that in the comments. Like us, share us with others. Let other folks know about what we're doing so we can know what it is that's resonating with you as our viewers. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone. And then Joanne, if you let us know when it's okay to stop it. All right.